Here's an ex-post from the luxury communists at Novara Media. If a general election happened tomorrow and only people under 50 were allowed to vote, Zack would be our next PM. And this is the type of social media post that's being pumped out at the moment about Mr. Polanski and the Greens. And there's a lot of fluffy language around this about, making hope real again, and we're going to look after people, and we're just going to tax those nasty billionaires at the top there, and everything's going to turn out well. But of course, behind that lies the beating heart of an idiot Marxist who believes that the world can be made fair with a bunch of policies that have been tried multiple times in the past and never ever worked. And I was watching an interview with Victoria Derbyshire. Well, she was interviewing Zack Polanski. And I was astounded at how much this man here has not even thought about whether wealth taxes are going to work. And these were really softball questions from Victoria here, and I just think this exposed Mr. Polanski for the fraud that he actually is.
Can you tell our audience how much you think that would raise a year?
So the estimates that have come out from the TUC and a group called Patriotic Millionaires, who are a group of millionaires saying taxes more, look between 15 to 25 billion pounds a year.
OK. Wealth taxes, as you know, have been tried in many other European countries similar to the UK. Spain has a wealth tax, which is quite similar to your proposal. Do you happen to know how much they raised in a year from their wealth tax?
No, I don't, but no. I'm hoping you can tell me.
Yeah, no, it's not a trick question. It's just interesting. It's about 3 billion euros, which is about £2.5 billion. That's in Spain. That is such a long way from your 15 to 25 billion a year.
Well, I think it's about getting the thresholds right and making sure it's done right. So
the Spain one is similar to your proposal.
Sure, but we're a different country. So we have the City of London for a start. There's an incredible amount of wealth in the City of London. So I think it's about making sure we're comparing apples and apples rather than apples and oranges.
OK. I mean, I've got a few more countries if it helps. Sure. Switzerland raised 9.5 billion euros from their wealth tax in 2023. Norway, 2.7 billion euros. They're just sums that are way down from what you're suggesting you could raise. And we've got Paul Johnson in March this year, formerly of the Institute for Fiscal Studies. No country in the world has ever successfully had a wealth tax that raised serious money. That's what I'm questioning.
And I think they're legitimate questions. I'd also say those aren't tiny amounts of money. So actually, whatever you're going to create from a wealth tax is ultimately about reducing inequality. This isn't about creating public investment. We can do that anyway. We don't need to tax the wealthy to do that. This is ultimately about tackling the deep inequality in our.
So you will have caught it there. He had no logical answer for what happened when wealth taxes were brought about in other countries like Spain. They didn't raise that much money. To which he said, well, we're not really too bothered about the money, are we? We just want to make it fairer. And I think that is an insight, a deep insight into the mind of Zack Polanski and the mind of the Greens generally. They're not bothered about whether the sums add up. They don't care about any of that. They have an ideology and they want to stand behind that. When you see a person standing with a refugee's welcome sign, there's no thought behind that. It's just an ideology. It's just these people thinking that they're doing the right thing. And that is sometimes the most dangerous type of person when they believe they're righteous. When they believe they have goodness on their side, people can become very, very dangerous, and that's happened throughout history. And aside from the wealth tax, we've got abolished landlords, open borders, rejoining Europe and the Schengen area, mansion taxes, asset taxes, increasing overseas aid, an additional 150 billion, this was on the last manifesto, 150 billion in extra taxes towards people that hold any assets. And so we can look at all of these policies here, and I think we can take from that interview there with Zack and generally how the Greens are thinking about what they're doing. Now, they haven't thought through all of these policies, just like Zack proved there. This is all about addressing inequality. And on one level, I can understand why some young people are drawn and seduced into this ideology. Because on the face of it, it sounds like you can solve all the problems in society. All you do is tax the rich people. But of course, successful societies have to have the rich people. Because if there's no rich people there, then there's no creation of new opportunities. And that's the lifeblood of economies. Business is the lifeblood of an economy. And when you start to overly tax rich people, they leave, the tax take goes down and everyone's life gets a little bit harder. And the very fact that Mr. Polanski wants to tax people who are rich because of his ideology, not because of its financial benefit, I think that tells you all you need to know about this man. He's a very, very dangerous individual, and, it needs to be remembered that in the 20th century, communism killed well over 100 million souls. And one of the things that does bother me about these policies here, although they are lunatic policies, we can look at the future and we can see in a range of different outcomes that might happen at the next election, our politics has become very fractured. It's not the same two-party system. The Labour and the Tories have been smashed, or certainly Labour will be smashed by the next election anyway. And we could be looking at a coalition at the next election. And if enough people vote for the Lib Dems, Greens and Labour, then we could see that little trio get into power. And really at that stage it's a bartering mechanism to see which parties want which policy. And the wealth tax is very, very well liked between all three of those parties. And I can see a world in 2029 where these parties get voted in and they bring in a wealth tax. And at that stage, all bets are off. And, how many people will leave the country? I don't really know. But life is going to get harder for everyone if this man gets anywhere near power. That's for sure. Thanks very much for your time.